You may have noticed from the title or thumbnail, this month in general, this year, is a pretty big deal in terms of my history being into Lolita fashion, because it's been 10 years since I started wearing it. That's right, I've been wearing Lolita fashion all the way back since 2008, and now it's 2018. I was 17 at the time when I started, and now I'm 27. Now that's just crazy. But it also makes me happy because teenage me would have always hoped that I would continue wearing Lolita fashion for ages and ages and ages, all the way till I'm an old lady. And so hey, I'm a quarter of the way there to being an old lady, and my dream seems to be working out. It actually amazes me how many Lolitas have been in this kind of style for this long. There's plenty I know that are still into it for the same amount of time I was into it, or longer. It's really funny because, you know, everyone thinks, oh, this is just going to be a weird phase, you know, but no, this isn't a phase. This ended up being a culture and lifestyle for a lot of people. So yeah, it was really cool. I'm also slightly horrified at the passage of time. It does not feel like it's been 10 years. It's a bit creepy. So to go with the theme of this video today, yes, I'm going to show you my very first Lolita outfit that I did all the way back in 2008. And on top of that, I'm just gonna like talk about how different the Lolita kind of fashion and community was 10 years ago. I thought, as someone that's now been in this for so long, I can really honestly tell you just how much has changed. Well, especially for Western Lolitas, which kind of went through different things than Japanese Lolitas, Japan being the origin of the fashion and where everything was mostly coming from. So I've actually been meaning to do this for ages. I finally found the photo of my first Lolita dress. Bear in mind, this isn't actually my first Lolita co-ord. I'll explain why in a minute. I managed to dig up from my old backup drive of my old computer, because this is bloody ages ago, and I found it. So here it is, Peachie in her first Lolita dress. Good God. Well, now that I've finally done that, I'm going to explain what happened. That is 17-year-old me wearing my first Lolita dress, hoping to wear this as my first coordinate once I got the rest of the parts. But in my opinion, at the time, I already had the socks and shoes. I did not even have a petticoat. And despite this picture, I was completely happy with it and posted it to a Lolita fashion forum. I can't remember the name of the forum, but it was not EGL, it was a random Lolita forum. It's probably dead now. Yeah, I have no idea what I was doing. That was not a complete coordinate. And yeah, the feedback I got on that, while polite, was obviously very critical. It was like, petticoat, something with the hair, which I completely understand. The reason I did not continue with this dress is because it was actually a knockoff. It did not come at all like it looked like in the picture on eBay. That's right, I got my first Lolita dress on eBay back in 2008, where Lolita fashion on eBay was definitely not a huge thing. A lot of older Lolitas may know the name of this eBay shop. It was called Momo Crafts. Momo Crafts, I found later on, too late, was a knockoff seller who stole pictures of actual brand pieces, dresses, blouses, etc., posted them on eBay, and then said, you're basically getting this item. Because, you know, you had the photos as reference, right? So what I thought I was getting was a Mary Magdalene dress for £40. A Mary Magdalene dress. That's going to be at least £200. It did not come at all in the size that was supposed to fit me. In fact, the sleeves, despite me being underweight at the time, were really, really tight, and that's why I did not like continue to wear it, even when I'd got like the rest of my Lolita pieces like petticoat and stuff. Unfortunately, that dress barely got worn. Such a shame. I was really excited about it at the time, to be honest, even though back in my head I was like, this isn't quite like what the picture said it was gonna look like. I am actually really, really annoyed. I thought I could show you it today. I swore I had kept it in storage, but unfortunately it's in storage all the way at my family's house, about 5 hours drive away. I'm so sorry. Okay, so interesting start to wearing Lolita fashion, but hey, it's an improvement to what happened when I was into Lolita fashion back in 2007, when I thought this counted as Lolita fashion, and I really wanted to buy this and wear it with jeans. My first official Lolita outfit, like fully done, complete cord, happened for my birthday party. I bought a bunch of stuff just like a few weeks before my birthday because I wanted an Alice in Wonderland themed birthday, as you do as a Lolita back then before it became a massive cliche and everything. This was a much better outfit. I am not too unhappy with this, especially for the style Lolita was at the time. It was pretty passable, I suppose. The dress came from Anna House, and I also got another dress from Anna House at the same order. And the headbow I was wearing was from a shop called In the Starlight, which was a famous indie brand from America that made Lolita accessories and some dresses and stuff, I think. And my petticoat at the time came from Anna House. It's not a good petty, but it worked alright at the time, I suppose. Shoes, I think, came from eBay, but they sold good shoes. Yeah, I actually really liked this outfit. I had a really lovely time on my birthday and I felt really cute, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely a style I want to keep wearing. I had a lot of fun with it. Actually, the other dress, the one I bought, I wore it the day before my birthday and I just came down to dinner one time like this and my family was like, okay, this is a thing she's doing now, I suppose. Like, they didn't really question it so much. What I didn't do in 2008 was wear much makeup at all. I think at most I was putting a bit of concealer on, like under my eyes because I've got dark shadows and maybe if I had a spot. Black eyeliner with pencil in the corners of my eyes. I didn't even use mascara. I don't think I even really used like lip gloss or anything. That was it. I was not into makeup at the time at all, especially during high school. I was not a makeup girl. At the time, obviously I didn't have a fringe, as you can see. That ended up actually being a really big problem the more I started wearing Lolita fashion. The fringe style that's really common with Lolita fashion really works for a lot of accessories with the Lolita style. I also enjoyed putting more stuff in my hair and it looked really imbalanced when I didn't have a fringe. I'm not saying you can't wear the Lolita style without a fringe, it just really helps coordinate and balance your look. Also back in 2008, I lived in the middle of nowhere. I could never go to any meetups. So yeah, I keep joking, I was literally the only Lolita in the village. It was a tiny village. I would walk around like that. I very rarely got to see Lolitas in person for the first almost 3 to 4 years of actually wearing Lolita fashion. When I would go down to London, on the other side of the country, for London MCM Expo, and some Lolitas would be there. I remember the first time I went, some Lolitas were really sweet and encouraging to me. I was wearing another Anna House dress I'd got later and they were really friendly. I was really touched by that moment because I felt very welcomed. I didn't at all get that vibe a lot of newbie Lolitas worry about, where you know it's kind of cliquish or where they're going to be snobby with you. They were so accepting and so sweet to me. For the rest of that year I kept getting Anna House pieces. I think I got one more thing from Momo's Crafts, which was a skirt that actually ended up not being that bad at all. And the last thing I had in my first year of wearing Lolita was a dress from a brand called Sai Sai, which was a physical store in London. They sold a lot of Lolita pieces. Unfortunately it was mostly like punk and some of it was a bit too costumey. I think Sai Sai may still exist in London today, down in Camden Market. But I would always get really excited whenever I was down in London, like to get to see that, because you know I'm a country girl. So when I went there, it was like the most amazing thing. I couldn't believe there was actually a Lolita fashion shop in the UK. I still have a Lolita coat from Sai Sai. It lasted really well. Okay, the first year I was definitely leaning towards a soft classic look. At the time, classic Lolita was much more pastel than it is today, and was mostly floral themes. That was my favourite style for ages when I was getting into Lolita fashion. I much preferred a soft classic look. And then as the years went on, I experimented with a lot of styles, including a bit of gothic and punk. I realised I started just moving towards the cutesy pastel stuff as much as possible. So that's how I eventually kind of settled into my favourite style today, which is very different. No natural hair, a bunch of makeup, a big petticoat, tons of accessories. That previous core didn't have any, did it? And I swear there's probably a bunch of people that are like, oh, Peachie looked better in that, or like, she didn't look stupid like she does now. I know. I just don't feel like that kind of person anymore. I'm different to when I was 10 years ago. So yeah, that was my story of my first year wearing Lolita fashion 10 years ago. And now I really want to talk about like what Lolita fashion community and stuff was like 10 years ago, because I'm actually amazed thinking about it, like how much has changed. So firstly, Facebook groups, making and organising meetups and stuff like that, communities on Facebook, none of that. Some Lolitas may have had a Facebook account, but Facebook was still very fresh and kind of only getting popular, well at least where I lived at the time, and that was just not a deal. Everyone was mostly going towards EGL. EGL is a live journal community. It still exists today, but it's very, very quiet compared to what it was like back then. I'm honestly still happy it's going, but I just don't use it anymore myself. Facebook unfortunately has been like much easier for communicating with Lolitas, arranging meetups and stuff like that. EGL had its charm though. In fact, there were quite a few Lolita communities on LiveJournal, but EGL was the hub. You could post photos of your outfit and get critique from other Lolitas, so a lot of Lolitas were helping build each other up and like help them follow the guidelines of, you know, what made Lolita really kind of its look. The guidelines of Lolita and the rules of Lolita were much more in place at the time. In fact, for a while it was almost a bit too strict because I always used to get self-conscious about my knees. So if any dress was at all remotely not even touching my knees, like, or you know, even just a little bit above, I'd think, oh no, that's totally wrong. Whereas now I'm wearing an Angelic pretty dress which ends just above my knee, but I was so scared I didn't think I could fit into anything Angelic pretty for years. But the helpfulness and community that came from EGL of helping to build other Lolitas up was really, really nice. I think that's actually missing from today with these Facebook groups and stuff, because everyone kind of, I don't know, wants to look nice online, so they don't want to be as critical, I suppose. Because with social media, anything you say is kind of immediately tied to your whole Facebook account, and there's the likes thing now. So if you want a like or approval from the person, you're not going to like be as like, oh, by the way, you might want to try this. Unfortunately, a lot of people just don't handle criticism so well. So while in theory you'd be like, well, aren't you asking for critique? Yes and no. Most people, when they actually get the critique, aren't so happy about it. So I honestly feel like the attitude shifted once everyone started making communities on Facebook instead of that hub at EGL. However, now it's so much easier to make friends, and arranging meetups is so easy with the event pages you can make on Facebook. You can join multiple different Lolita groups. Perhaps you just want to join a Sweet Lolita group, or a brand sales only Lolita group and stuff, very niche, specific things you're looking for. And like I said, yeah, sales, you can like buy stuff on Facebook really easily now. You can sell stuff on Facebook really easily as well, in case you don't want the hassle of like setting up an eBay account and stuff. People would sell stuff on LiveJournal as well back in 2008, but it was really strict and I was far too intimidated to use it ever. EGL was also really good as like a hub of like resources. They would have like a helpful list of links to help you with Lolita fashion, which was hard at the time because it was much harder to like Google search for information and tutorials than it is now. Having said that, I swear I still get people asking me stuff that would just literally just take a Google search. It would. But back then I could understand more why newbies would ask Lolitas about certain information. Like I said, with the guidelines in 2008, there was less creative freedom with Lolita fashion. Nowadays, like I've mentioned in previous videos, people mix Lolita fashion with other styles a lot of the time, or parts of the Lolita pieces with casual outfits or other stuff. Like obviously a lot of the accessories I'm wearing today can go with Fairy Kate and Decora. On that note, Sweet Lolita was not at all like this, at all. But it had the first signs of it emerging. Angelic Pretty released a series called Fruits Parlor and another one called Dreamy Macaron. Those were the first dresses that kind of started sparking a bit more colourful pop in Sweet Lolita. But yeah, OTT Sweet, that was just not a thing at all. This would be related to Decora back in the day, which was really popular in Western society back then, even though it was already considered quite outdated in Japan. Everything was moving very slowly from Japan to the West at the time. So Lolitas back then, really interestingly, were wearing mostly what would be called old school style today, which I guess 10 years now you could call old school, but old school often refers to the late 90s, early 2000s Lolita, not like 2008. But that was a sign that like Decora, like I said, was coming very slowly from Japan to the West, unlike now where we're always immediately connected to the latest trends. On the topic of old school, there was much less difference between the three main styles, Gothic, Classic and Sweet. Nowadays you could really quite easily tell what's Sweet Lolita, what's Gothic Lolita, what's Classic Lolita, although I'd say Sweet is actually moving more towards a classical Sweet, like what I was into back in 2008 now. But you know what I mean, you can very easily distinguish them. Whereas back then, 2008, it was more about the dress itself, and all the other accessories like the blouse underneath, the socks, the shoes, were like always kind of the same style. Obviously there were exceptions, some Lolitas were kind of creative and moved out of that kind of box, but because like I said the guidelines were like more strict, like everyone kind of followed them more seriously back then. Everyone could wear like the same white blouse, but then a classic Lolita a jumper skirt or gothic Lolita jumper skirt or a sweet Lolita jumper skirt the next day. You just don't really get that anymore today. Like, it's much harder to mix and match your Lolita wardrobes now. Lolita fashion's got more detailed and customized as well, so like, you know, you can get gothic black lace on your blouses now, which obviously wouldn't match like a cute pastel teddy sweet Lolita top. Lolita accessories and stuff kind of are made to match the outfits. Angelic Pretty releases sets now, that kind of thing. It just wasn't happening popularly back in 2008. Some other random things in 2008. The website I really loved to follow was called Princess Portal by someone called Princess Sky, who a few years later, which everyone was kind of sad about, moved to a more kind of indie blog called The Lost Princess. But the Princess Portal at the time was like, you know, how to be a princess website for girls, and me as a teenager kind of growing up trying to find myself, that was really nice and made me feel more girly. I remember there was like a list of things, you know, like, you know, guidelines for a princess. Some of them were really ridiculous, like, you know, a princess should always have fresh flowers in her room every day. Mana is still a thing, I think, but back in 2008 people still really like this guy a lot. Like, would talk about and post pictures. Gothic Lolitas were super into Mana, and Moiti, his brand was like ultra high level coveted stuff at the time. If you wanted to be more connected with Japan and Harajuku, where all the style was coming from, you would follow Lolitas on either Ameblo, a Japanese blogging website, or the other one, Yap Blog. 1 or 2 years later, from 2008, one of my absolute favourite inspirations would come from there. She was called Damare Kozo. And the Gothic Lolita Bible magazine was considered, you know, a staple for Lolitas. Like, you'd feel more complete as a Lolita if you had one of those. In terms of actually buying Lolita back in 2008, it was much harder. Most Lolita brands, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, but they did not ship internationally directly. I actually remember it being a really exciting time for a lot of Lolitas when Angelic Pretty and Baby Starshine Bright, not at the same time, but like they started announcing, oh, we'll definitely start selling to international customers and shipping directly to them. So before then, people were using shopping services or Lolitas who lived in Japan and then personally sending it, again, like a shopping service. It was very expensive, and obviously customs, etc. that hasn't changed, but a lot harder, especially to get a piece you really wanted. Nowadays you just go on Facebook and post a want to buy post, and then someone will eventually show up unless it's something very specific. Replicas were not a thing back in 2008. I think that took a few years to kick off. By replicas I mean a very obvious copy of an expensive brand piece, but it was not being sold as a knockoff. It was not trying to sell it as the real thing. That's the difference between replica and knockoff. So the Momo Crafts dress, I said, that was a knockoff because it was trying to sell it as a brand item. Whereas replicas, like, you know what you're getting when you get them. You know it's a copy, it's not the real thing. So that was something nobody was thinking about, worrying about. There was no controversy over that. I know I used to wear replicas a few years later, but like, that wasn't a deal back in 2008. There were much more knockoffs. Like I said, like, Momo Crafts was huge, like a really common mistake people would make, including me. I'm getting their first Lolita piece on eBay from Momo Crafts. That was more of a thing, just straight up lies online when you were buying your item. Wigs were not popular at all in Lolita fashion. I'm pretty sure some Lolitas kind of wore them sometimes, but almost everyone I remember wore natural hair. A lot of Lolitas didn't have dyed hair as well as in natural coloured hair. A lot of Lolitas that had unnaturally coloured dyed hair, they would worry about, oh, if they could co-order, if they were going to get bad criticism. Nowadays nobody cares. And most people know me as a Bodyline girl who wore a lot of Bodyline and bought a ton of Bodyline. But back then I didn't have any Bodyline. My first year I didn't get any Bodyline. 2008, nope. Most people are like warning you not to buy from Bodyline, like it was another mistake place like Momo Crafts where it looked really cheap, but all the stuff was known as really costume quality, because Bodyline was kind of a dodgy costume shop before it got known in the Lolita community for selling sort of higher quality but cheap Lolita pieces. Which is funny because 10 years later Bodyline's becoming quite irrelevant now, so the exchange rate for the pound was pretty good. The recession hadn't happened when I first got into Lolita fashion, and it didn't really hit hard with the exchange rate until maybe a whole year or two later. So for the first year, or maybe at most 2 years I was wearing Lolita fashion, that was a good cheap time, and I was lucky. I built up my Lolita wardrobe really fast in the first 2 years. Also note, like I said, I was just a teenager still living with my family. I did not have bills to pay. So yeah, that is my personal kind of experience and set of memories I have from 10 years ago being in the Lolita community. Nowadays I feel people are much more open and experimental Lolita fashion. They try different J fashion styles on the side or mix them together sometimes. People are much more like open to like arranging meetups, making new friends. In Lolita fashion it's much easier to do. Now we've even got lots of Lolita YouTubers making videos and we all just kind of feel connected like this. I know I don't wear Lolita fashion as regularly as I used to, but I don't plan to quit anytime soon. Like I said 10 years ago, I love Lolita fashion and I want to keep wearing it and enjoying it. In fact, I would have built up my wardrobe a lot more over the past 2 years if I wasn't saving up for something very important happening this year, which I'm excited to talk about later. But yeah, I'm actually finally, after 2 years of waiting, I'm looking forward to kind of getting over my personal project later this year, and then I can start, you know, building up my Lolita wardrobe again. Yay! I've been doing Lolita videos on YouTube for 8 years now, so I just want to say thank you so much to everyone that stuck with me and followed me this long. You know, even though as time's gone by I've changed my style, where I've lived, my backdrop, what's been going on, how frequently I post videos, you guys have stuck with me and that means so much. And to new subscribers, hi! Thanks for joining me even though I'm a totally outdated, old washed out YouTuber now. So yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you so much. And before I go, to match this theme, I have some new rewards on Patreon which I've just made live. So I'll quickly list off all of the original and the new extra rewards that you can get on Patreon at different levels. If you support me at $2 a month, you'll get to see blooper reels at least 2 to 3 times a month, and you'll also get sneak peek posts, either like photos, little video clips, or like blog posts of behind the scenes stuff going on in Peachie life and with future videos. If you support me at $10 a month, you get all of those previous rewards plus a secret Peachie vlog twice a month, bi-weekly. They're at least 5 minutes long, and now you'll also get at least 2 to 3 times a month a Blunder Years story with a bunch of photos of my old coordinates. There'll always be a weird story behind each of the Blunder Years posts, like you know, what my thought process was, what was going on in my life at the time. And for my highest tier patrons at $20 a month, you get all the $2 rewards, all the $10 rewards, and a personal video response that'll be at least 3 minutes long. They're usually well over like 6 minutes, and I literally can just talk about anything that you want me to talk about to you personally. And as well as a personal video response, you will also get a personal handwritten letter by me for you, and I will also include some of my kawaii stationery collection. But yeah, now that I've made this video showing my first Lolita coordinate and all my blunderings with that, I'm looking forward to sharing with you my Blunder Years post on Patreon for those who are willing to support me at a closer level. I like being able to get closer with my patrons, which has been a very nice experience, so thank you to everyone that's helped me out so far. But anyway, here's Peachie, who's been a Lolita YouTuber for 8 years, but a Lolita for 10 years, saying goodbye for now, and I ain't going anywhere. Bye guys!